My brother stole clients from the business I built from scratch, so I started over quietly. And now his company's collapse is my sweetest revenge. A 27-year-old guy. And I built my consulting business from nothing. No family funding. No investor backing, just a second-hand laptop, a cracked phone, and the kind of blind faith that keeps you awake at AM wondering if you're delusional or destined for something bigger. My apartment was barely a step up from a storage unit, thin walls, flickering lights, and a desk pressed against the only window. But that's where everything started. Most nights, I lived of coffee and cold noodles, glued to my screen while the city outside slept. Every new client felt like winning a war. I'd send out dozens of proposals a week, sometimes hearing nothing back for months. Still, I kept pushing, researching, refining, learning from every rejection until the numbers started shifting in my favor. I didn't have much, but I had drive, and that was enough to keep me going. That's when Ryan, my older brother, stepped in. Ryan was everything I wasn't. Charming, confident, and magnetic. He had this way of making people trust him instantly. He'd been working in sales for years, and when he saw my progress, he said, "You've got something real here, man. Let me help you scale it." I hesitated at first. I'd always been cautious mixing family with business, but his enthusiasm was contagious. We started working together, dividing roles naturally. I handled the technical side, strategy, execution, analytics, while Ryan worked the people, landing meetings and opening doors I couldn't. The synergy was electric. We'd stay up late sketching business plans on pizza boxes, laughing about the future. For the first time, it felt like we were unstoppable, two brothers, building something bigger than either of us alone. When our first major client signed a long-term deal, I remember Ryan slapping my back and saying, "We made it, little brother." In that moment, I believed him. I truly thought we were a team, built on trust, loyalty, and shared ambition. I had no idea that trust would be the very thing that destroyed everything I built. At first, everything with Ryan felt easy, almost too easy. We split the workload, doubled our clients, and started gaining recognition in our niche. But slowly, I began to notice little cracks forming in what I thought was solid ground. During family dinners, Ryan would casually mention his latest project or his client wins, referring to deals I'd spent weeks nurturing. When I'd laugh it off later and tease him about it, he'd smirk and say, "Relax, man. We're a team." People just like hearing one voice. I wanted to believe him. He was my brother, and family doesn't stab you in the back, right? But things kept piling up. One afternoon, a client emailed me directly, confused about a new pricing model I'd never approved. Turns out Ryan had changed the terms to close faster. When I confronted him, he brushed it off. "You overthink things," he said. "Let me handle the human side. You stick to your spreadsheets." His tone was light, but it hit me wrong. That was my company he was talking about. My name on the contracts, my sleepless nights building every system he now casually tampered with. Still, I bit my tongue. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I was just tired. He'd always been more assertive, more charming. Maybe clients responded better to that. I convinced myself that keeping the peace mattered more than being right. But then, small inconsistencies started appearing in our books: missing invoices, unexplained adjustments, delayed payments. Ryan always had an excuse ready: a bank error, a client misunderstanding, simple accounting delay. Each explanation sounded reasonable enough in isolation, but together, they whispered a pattern I didn't want to see. Late one night, while updating records, I caught myself staring at Ryan's name next to every questionable transaction. My stomach twisted. I told myself not to jump to conclusions, that brothers don't betray brothers, but deep down, a quiet voice had already started to whisper the truth. The business was booming. Within a year, we'd moved from my cramped apartment to a sleek office, downtown, glass walls, polished floors, the kind of place that made you feel like you'd made it. I should have been proud, but the more we grew, the more I felt like a stranger inside my own creation. Ryan had become the face of everything. At meetings, clients shook his hand first. He was the one they recognized at conferences, the one they quoted in articles. Meanwhile, I was the guy behind the curtain, the tech brain, who rarely got credit. IT started small. Ryan would interrupt me during presentations, rephrasing my ideas like they were his. "What my brother means is," he'd say, before twisting my concept into something flashier but hollow. "Clients ate it up. I told myself it didn't matter who got the attention as long as the work spoke for itself, but watching my brother bask in applause I'd earned began to sting in ways I didn't expect. Then came the spending. Company funds became Ryan's playground business class flights, fine dining with potential leads, designer suits for the image. When I questioned the expenses, he laughed. You need to think bigger, man. Clients want to see success. But his version of success was different. I was building a business. He was building a brand, his brand. He started appearing in podcasts and interviews, talking about his journey and his leadership, not our story. His. One night, after an event, I overheard him talking to a client. He said, "Yeah, my brother's great with data and stuff, but I'm the real driver behind the growth." It felt like a knife through my chest, calm, deliberate, and personal. That's when I realized something was shifting. This wasn't just business anymore. It was becoming a stage, and I was being quietly written out of the script. It started with an odd email. One of our oldest clients thanked me for the smooth transition and wished me luck in the future. I stared at the screen, confused. Transition? We'd just renewed their contract 2 months ago. When I called them, the tone was polite but distant. "Oh, Ryan told us you were stepping back," they said. "He's handling everything personally now." My chest tightened. That wasn't just a misunderstanding, it was a lie. I started digging through our client files, checking invoices and contracts. That's when I saw it. A string of deals that never went through our official company account. Different email domain, slightly tweaked company name, but the services, pricing, and branding were identical to ours. Ryan had set up a shadow company behind my back, redirecting clients and undercutting prices. For a while, I just sat there in silence, staring at the evidence. My mind was spinning, confusion, anger, disbelief, all bleeding into each other. Ryan had taken everything I taught him, everything we built together, and weaponized it against me. That evening, I confronted him in the office. The air felt electric with tension. "You're stealing clients from our business," I said, throwing the printed contracts onto his desk. Ryan didn't even flinch. He leaned back, smirking like it was some kind of joke. "Come on, man. They just wanted more flexibility. I'm handling it in a way that benefits both sides." "Both sides?" I snapped. "You're gutting the company." He stood up, voice cold. "It's my company too." That was the moment it hit me. This wasn't my brother trying to help. This was my partner turning into competition. And he wasn't done yet. When I left that office, my hands were shaking. The trust that once built our foundation was now the crack that would tear it apart. After that confrontation, nothing felt the same. Ryan became colder, sharper. Like the friendly brother I'd built my dream with had been replaced by a corporate machine wearing his face. Meetings turned into power plays. He started excluding me from client calls, forgetting to loop me into strategy emails, subtly erasing my presence from the day-to-day operations. I could feel it. He was pushing me out, inch by inch, under the pretense of streamlining leadership. Then came the real blow. One morning, I logged into our financial portal, only to find my access revoked. When I confronted him, he brushed it off with a fake grin. "Relax. It's just temporary. We're restructuring for efficiency." I could barely breathe. The business I had bled for, the one I'd built from the ground up, was slipping from my hands, not because I failed, but because I trusted the wrong person. Things got worse when our parents found out. Ryan had gotten to them first, of course. He told them I was unstable, that I'd been sabotaging our growth out of jealousy. My mother called, her voice trembling. "Honey, just take a break. Let Ryan handle things for now." It felt like betrayal layered over betrayal, not just from my brother, but from the very people who raised us. Within weeks, I was forced out. Ryan offered to buy my share at a laughable price, framing it as a mercy deal to avoid family tension. I signed the papers, not because I agreed, but because I couldn't stand one more conversation that made me doubt my own sanity. I moved into a small studio apartment the same size as the one I started in years ago. Except this time, it wasn't ambition that kept me up at night. It was humiliation. Everywhere I looked, I saw his logo, his ads, his interviews, my life's work rewritten with his name on it. And for the first time, I realized I was truly alone. For weeks, I existed in a fog, waking up late, staring at walls, scrolling through news articles about Ryan's success. Every headline felt like a bruise I couldn't stop pressing. Ryan Cooper's firm doubles revenue in record time. My firm, my systems, my blood. He'd taken everything and built a throne on my silence. Then one morning, I found myself at a coffee shop, laptop open, cursor blinking on a blank page. I don't even know what pushed me there, maybe habit, maybe defiance. But I started writing again, ideas, plans, fragments of strategies I'd once lived and breathed. It felt like waking up after drowning. I realized something crucial. Ryan might have stolen my company, but he couldn't steal me. The knowledge, the grit, the vision that was mine. So I started small. Freelance gigs under a pseudonym, low rates, late nights, the grind I knew best. I kept my identity quiet, especially when an old client reached out by chance. They said, "We miss your old structure." Ryan's team. It's not the same. I asked careful questions, pretending to be an outsider. What they described sounded like poetic justice, disorganization, arrogance, broken promises. His empire was already cracking from the inside. That's when something inside me reignited. I didn't want revenge through anger, I wanted it through excellence. I began reaching out to a handful of trusted former colleagues, the ones Ryan had burned. We started rebuilding quiet, disciplined, invisible. No social media presence, no noise, just work. Each night, I'd sit at the same desk in my tiny apartment, the glow of my laptop reflecting of half-empty coffee cups. My heart pounded not from rage anymore, but from focus. I wasn't out to destroy him. I was out to become untouchable. He took everything once. I was going to make sure he could never do it again. The first few months of rebuilding felt like DJVU, the same grind, the same hunger. Except this time, I was invisible. No flashy office, no investors, no brother promising shortcuts. Just me, a handful of trusted people, and a drive sharpened by betrayal. We worked nights, coding, strategizing, and building what I wished my first company had been, something solid, honest, and unshakable. I kept everything off the radar. No website, no social media, no LinkedIn updates. Every new client came through word of mouth, people tired of empty promises, looking for results that actually delivered. I poured myself into the work until exhaustion became normal again. But this time it felt freeing. There was no ego to battle, no one rewriting my story behind my back. Just quiet progress. Meanwhile, whispers about Ryan's company started surfacing. One of my old contacts mentioned they backed out of a deal with him. He's not the same anymore, they said. It's all show, no follow through. I didn't respond, but inside, I felt something I hadn't in years. Validation. As months passed, my new business found its rhythm. Our systems were tighter, our ethics stronger. Every decision was made with one rule: never again trust someone who doesn't value the grind. Slowly, we started attracting real attention clients who cared more about quality than clout. Then one night, I got an email that stopped me cold. It was from one of Ryan's biggest clients, a Fortune 500 account we'd once landed together. Their message was short: "We'd like to discuss working with your new firm." Ryan's team hasn't met expectations. I stared at that email for a long time, not with glee or vengeance, but with a deep, quiet satisfaction. The circle was closing. I hit reply, took a deep breath, and typed, "Let's talk." The meeting with that Fortune 500 client felt like walking back into my old life suits, polished conference rooms, and that faint tension of corporate smiles. I kept my composure, presented our pitch, and when the deal was done, they signed with us on the spot. It was a quiet victory, but what I didn't realize then was how close fate was to circling back in ways I couldn't imagine. A week later, one of my new hires, Emma, a sharp, fearless strategist, walked into my office, pale as paper. "You're not going to believe who tried to recruit me," she said, dropping her phone on my desk. I looked down and froze. There was an email from Ryan's company, personally signed by him. He'd reached out to her for a leadership opportunity. He had no idea she worked for me. Curious, I told her to take the meeting and record it. She agreed. The next day, she came back with audio that made my stomach twist. Ryan's voice, smooth, arrogant, familiar. He bragged about how he'd built everything from scratch, then sneered about me. My brother? Yeah, he couldn't handle the pressure. He got bitter and walked out. I'm the real reason we succeeded. But that wasn't all. He hinted at things far darker, admitting he'd forged invoices, underpaid staff, and massaged client data to inflate profits. Listening to that recording was like reopening a wound I thought had healed. For years, I'd carried the guilt of losing what we built. But hearing him expose his own rot, that flipped something inside me. For the first time, I wasn't angry, I was strategic. I started collecting everything: emails, testimonies, financial records. Ryan thought I was gone for good. He had no idea I was quietly building the case that would one day end him. Just when it felt like things were finally turning in my favor, the universe, or maybe Ryan, decided to hit back harder. One morning, I opened my inbox to find a legal notice. Ryan was suing me for intellectual property theft and client poaching. My chest tightened as I read line after line of fabricated accusations, forged signatures, falsified timelines, and claims that I'd stolen the systems I built years before he ever showed up for a moment. I couldn't breathe. The rage I'd felt earlier was gone, replaced by this heavy, suffocating dread. He was using my own success to destroy me all over again. My new company's operations froze overnight. Clients grew nervous, emails slowed, and investors backed away until the lawsuit was resolved. Ryan had weaponized the one thing he always had: perception. My team tried to reassure me. Emma said, "He's bluffing. There's no way he has proof." But I wasn't so sure. Ryan had always been manipulative, and now he had money, influence, and lawyers who didn't care about truth, only winning. I barely slept that week. The old feelings came back: failure, shame, helplessness. It was like living the same nightmare again. Except this time, I had something to lose. Then, one sleepless night, while combing through my old shared folders, I found something that made my blood run cold: documents Ryan had altered years ago. Partnership agreements, rewritten subtly to favor him. Digital signatures that weren't mine. Proof that he'd been planning this betrayal long before I ever caught on. It was sickening. But it was also a spark of hope. I forwarded the files to my lawyer, along with the audio recordings and financial inconsistencies we'd collected. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of control again. Ryan had pushed me to rock bottom before, but this time, I wasn't crawling out, I was climbing with purpose. The day my lawyer called, I was sitting in silence, staring at the lawsuit papers scattered across my desk. His voice came through steady and calm. "We've got him." I leaned forward, barely breathing. The evidence we'd gathered: the forged documents, altered timestamps, and the recorded confession from his meeting with Emma, was airtight. Ryan had built his empire on lies, and now it was about to collapse under its own weight. We filed a countersuit and submitted everything to both the court and the press. Within 24 hours, it spread like wildfire. Business blogs, finance sites, LinkedIn posts, everyone was talking about Ryan Cooper's scandal. Screenshots of the leaked recordings went viral. Clients began pulling contracts overnight. Investors bailed, and his employees started resigning en masse. My phone buzzed nonstop with messages, some from old colleagues thanking me for exposing him, others from journalists wanting statements. But I stayed quiet. I didn't need to gloat. The evidence spoke louder than any words ever could. Meanwhile, Ryan went on damage control. He made a video statement full of excuses, misunderstandings, manipulative partners, false accusations, but people weren't buying it anymore. His mask had finally cracked. Every smooth line, every fake smile, every illusion of success, all of it was disintegrating in real time. I watched it unfold from my small office, feeling not joy exactly, but relief. It wasn't revenge in the way I'd imagined. It was justice, silent, inevitable, and poetic. The man who had stolen my name, my work, my legacy, was now publicly exposed as a fraud. The empire he'd built on deception was burning down, not because I shouted louder, but because I waited for the right moment to let the truth speak. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning of his fall. The fallout hit faster than anyone expected. Within weeks, Ryan's company was drowning in lawsuits and unpaid debts. Clients demanded refunds. Regulators launched investigations, and former employees began testifying about everything from falsified reports to toxic work culture. Every lie he'd told to climb higher was now dragging him down. Piece by piece, I watched it all unfold from a distance. I didn't interfere, didn't speak, didn't celebrate. I didn't need to. Karma was doing what it does best, moving slow, but striking hard. My lawyer called one afternoon and said, "He's filing for bankruptcy. His assets are frozen." I just nodded, staring out the window of my modest office, realizing how quiet victory could feel. Meanwhile, my own company was thriving quietly. Clients who once doubted me returned, apologizing for believing his version of events. "You always handled business with integrity," one of them said. "We should have known. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about reclaiming my name, my reputation, my story." Ryan, on the other hand, disappeared from the spotlight. The confident, Charismatic brother who once couldn't walk into a room without commanding attention was now reduced to whispers and headlines about corporate fraud. Even our parents stopped defending him. MOM called one night, her voice trembling. We had no idea what he was doing. I am so sorry. I didn't feel satisfaction hearing that, just closure. I'd spent so long being angry that now all I felt was calm. A few days later, I drove past our old office building, the place where we built everything together. The windows were dark, the sign removed, the lobby empty. I stood there for a while, remembering the laughter, the dreams, the brother I thought I had. And then I turned around and walked away, because some ruins aren't meant to be rebuilt. It's been 3 years since Ryan's company collapsed. I still remember the day I stopped checking news about him, not because I didn't care, but because I finally didn't need to. His name became a cautionary tale in business circles, whispered like a warning. Don't pull a Ryan Cooper. The irony still makes me smile. My own company has grown quietly, the way I always intended it to. No headlines, no ego, no empty promises, just honest work and loyal clients. We've built a reputation not on flash, but on follow-through. Every project feels like redemption, proof that success built with integrity doesn't need an audience to matter. Sometimes I think about reaching out to him to ask why he threw away everything for greed and pride. But I know the answer already. Some people can't stand seeing others shine unless they're the ones holding the spotlight. One morning, I got an email from an unknown address. It was Ryan. Just a few words. I lost everything. I hope you're happy. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I closed it without replying. Happiness wasn't what I wanted, peace was. And I finally had it. Now, when I walk into my office, the hum of keyboards, the quiet energy of people who actually care, I feel something Ryan never understood. Fulfillment. The kind that doesn't come from money or fame, but from building something that lasts. I've learned that revenge isn't about destroying someone else's life. It's about rebuilding you so completely that there's no longer matters. He stole my clients once, but I built something he could never steal: self-respect, stability, and peace. And in the end, that was the sweetest revenge of all.